Representation in tree-based genetic programming. Genetic programming involves computer programs traditionally represented in memory as tree structures. And it is also recommended that genetic programming techniques are usually to be applied if we have non-linear structures like graphs or like non-linear chromosomes or like trees. So it is very well suited to all those data types which are non-linear and specifically which are represented in trees. So genetic programming are specifically employed in all those cases to solve that types of problems in which data structure is in the form of trees or graphs. Trees can easily be evaluated in a recursive manner. We have recursive techniques and we have some non-recursive techniques to evaluate our systems, to evaluate the depth and breadth of the system. So if the data is represented in a tree manner, so all the trees can be easily evaluated in a recursive manner. Every tree node has an operation function. This is again very good and will help in the operations to be performed on the tree structure. So an operation function has been associated with every node of the tree, specifically in the case of the genetic programming. Every terminal node has an operand, making mathematical expressions easy to evolve and evaluate. So mathematical equations can be easily evaluated because of the association of that operand with every terminal node. Thus, traditionally, genetic programming favors the use of such programming languages which favors the tree structure. So all those programming languages can be applied to the genetic programming which can embody the tree structures with them. So they favor all those programming languages. This slide represents a function which is represented in a tree structure, and this is has been taken as an example of the tree representation of a function. So here is a function. This is a function. There are two parts of this function. This part to be added with this part. So if we want to represent this function in a tree structure to be as an input to the genetic programming algorithm, this can be represented as we can see here that this function can be successfully represented as a tree structure, and it is very easy to represent different types of functions in a tree structure. For example, here we can see that first of all, this part of there are two parts of this function, part 1 and part 2. Now we can divide this tree over here. Now this part is representing this part of the function, and this the subtree is representing this part of the function. One can see here that first of all, this part has been represented in the tree over here, that x divided by y, which is in subtraction relation with 2.2. So the subtraction relation is here 2 minus 2. So we can read this specific subtree with this part of the equation of the function, and this part represents this part. Y into cos is represented over here, y into cos, which is in multiplication to 7, so multiplied by 7, and both these parts can be represented by an addition sign. So both the parts are associated with the addition sign. So this part is with the addition represented with this part, and so the whole function can be represented with a tree structure. Similarly, we can also represent some other complex functions in tree structures, and representation in tree structure is not a very difficult task. And then if we have a representation in tree structure, then we can use recursive types of algorithms to evaluate the depth and breadth of the tree. It is also to be noted that genetic programming algorithms not only can use tree structures, They can also be applied to linear structures as well, to the non-tree structures as well. And there also been some non-tree structures have already been proposed and implemented successfully in through genetic programming techniques and genetic programming algorithms. And if one is using some non-tree structure, then those types of computer languages can be used, which favors the linear structures as compared to the non-linear structures. But in most of the cases, the non-tree structure representations have structurally non-effective codons or introns. We call them non-effective codes basically, and the code is basically the intron or the part of the gene. So these non-tree structures are basically these such types of introns or the genes are usually non-effective, and if they are non-effective, so they are of no use. So that's why it is usually recommended there to use genetic programming algorithms specifically in the case of tree-like structures and in tree representations.